Hello, everyone. Welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. It's July the 12th of 2024. I am Nick here with Quinn, here to bring you all the week in manga and other such like things.
Yeah, we're going to recap all the events from the week and compare them to manga references.
Oh, please no.
So, the election in the UK, I guess, similar to Danzo being elected Hokage. Maybe a little bit better, but not much better. Let's see, what else happened this week, Nick? Taylor Swift released a new version of her song to make sure that she wasn't removed from the top 10. So that's, pretty similar to that Akane-banashi character who always Zensho. Complete dickhead, just like Taylor. They're basically one the same.
It's got to be a great thing where you're just like, songwriting's hard. Put some cowbells like in this other song that I had and just release that new version. Yeah.
I long for the world where I am a singer, like I'm a musician of some kind, with that level of forethought into my songs where I'm just like, I don't really know what this song needs. What if I just threw in like a Golden Axe song, like a song from the Golden Axe 8-bit soundtrack, and just, saw what that kind of did for it.
That song's the first stage song of that game is actually banging. So yeah.
Look, I have found out over time that many of my favorite songs, even in video games, are often just sampling older songs that came before and stuff like that. There's some very interesting videos I've watched on that. And I feel like we could start doing it in reverse. Like, I can create great music now by being like, hey, y'all ever heard of Starlight Zone? I hope not, because I lifted the entire song and I just sang like stupid lyrics over the top of it, like, I love my cat, I love my cat, loving my cat. I assume in that universe that like pro cat music is like the big thing.
In the universe where you would be a very I mean that would make sense, I guess, if you became a massive platinum level. Yeah, absolutely. I guess it would be considering the number
I define what is considered popular. There are a couple things that are different in that universe about what's popular about music. They love music about cats. They love music about being a sad girl, although that's kind of true for our universe too. And they fucking love Crush 40 as a featuring. Like, they feature on 90% of my songs, and the only 10% they're not featuring on are the ones where they were like, we are physically unable to record another fucking sample on your songs. And I'm like, is there not a Crush 39 I could speak to? Like all of your younger cousins in a band that I can get them in at least for a song?
So it's less that you assume that your taste would apply to this world. So not so much you assume as you assert that this would be a world in which everyone loved cat music. Okay.
Yeah, look, we didn't get Endgame because the world decided spontaneously we wanted a bunch of jingoistic superheroes, okay? Marvel put it out, and it worked, and then they just kept going. So I came out a completely original song called It Doesn't Matter, that I also added a extra vocal layer on top of, which is just me going like, my cat rules, Sonic rules. And then the rest of the song plays, and then that, won a couple Grammys, and then, things spiraled out from there.
Is this like a Time Paradox Ghostwriter situation where in this universe, like, these Sonic songs don't exist outside of your production of them? And you bring them over.
I think they absolutely exist. And
Okay.
through sheer force of personality, no one ever questioned. Like, look, Crush 40 is just like, look, a paycheck is a paycheck. Like, she pays on time. It's very reliable. She's generous. Like, it works for us. You know, whatever. I'm glad she sampled fucking Night of the Wind 17 times.
That's a good song.
Yeah, like exactly, right? I'm exposing the whole world to it.
I do not
Know how to transition us into My Hero Academia?
I do not know how to transition us away from this amazing point of this wonderful world you've envisioned to talk about manga that have nothing to do with Sonic the Hedgehog or your cat. I think.
Well, you know,
there might be a cat somewhere in here.
Keep your eyes open, viewers. If you pay attention, you might see Professor P. It's not physically. Like, you don't need to look at my background to see if you see him. If you do, there is a problem because there are at least 2 closed doors currently in between me and him. But you know, his spirit, his presence, you know, his ennui, all that's just around us. The best part is I saw you do it while simultaneously thinking I'm going to get a text message from Austin when he listens to us. And it's just a little frowny face because he hates that I use ennui wrong.
Oh, man. I just saw Inside Out 2 last week too. So which means that word has been in my head more in the past week than it has in the past year.
I was gonna say I've seen Inside Out 2, so now more than ever I should know what the practical use definition of ennui is, and yet I refuse.
Because you just have to say it with a French accent, and it applies to everything. Obviously.
It sounds, yeah. Everyone's like, "Oh wow, Quinn knows a lot of like interesting words." I'm like, I know Susan, I know ennui, I know a couple little ones in there. You sprinkle them, and people think you're a genius. And you know, Nick, not to tangent us for an 8th time in this, but damn, I had a thought. I think I laughed it out of me. No, wait. Give me a sec. I'm tracing.
This is a real ennui right here. I'm not.
It's gone. It's gone now. Never mind. Let's talk about My Hero.
Okay. Chapter number 427.
That's all I can say.
I'm sure it was. Who was Tamura Shigaraki? Really?
Really?
This chapter begins with
Nick, I remembered.
Damn it!
I'm just saying, you know how sometimes when you like Google a word now, like Oxford has changed its definition to include the wrong way people refer to it. Like if you like search literally, it'll say something literally, also used informally as something not literal at all.
Not literally.
I want to be that with ennui. That one day someone types it in and it says ennui, depression, informally. I don't know, like a person's spirit or some shit. It was some dumb girl. She's the one that got it here.
I can understand that. That's not a bad goal, actually, because that's not a particularly widely used word. So yeah, if you want to set your sights on a word to have the wrong definition become a correct definition, I think that's a pretty good one.
They can't stop me. I'm just gonna keep doing it.
Let's do it. Let's use the word ennui on an ennui amount until people just start
they're ennuied out of it
all the time. Yeah. All right. The chapter. So this begins with a television special, some sort of special news report where people are being interviewed on their thoughts on Shigaraki now that he's, dead. And so everyone, of course, has negative thoughts to offer about him because he was this horrible villain who nearly destroyed all of hero society. And as this is going on, Deku has gone to see Spinner in prison. And so there's this special report going on that says, who exactly was Tamura Shigaraki, the leader of the League of Villains? We'll have the full story for you afterwards. Dr. Toad from Mario says that Spinner has managed. They've gotten him back to work how he was before. Because like he had all these multiple quirks in his body, of course, he was becoming a Nomu essentially, and they were able to reverse that process. Spinner is not happy that Deku was there because it's like, you're a murderer, you killed my friend. Fair enough, he did do that, yes.
He's like, you got me there. You know what? You called them like you saw them, and I did kill your friend.
Anyway, your dead friend had this to say to you, so. Here's the message.
What was it? Oh, damn it. I wrote over the message with instructions on how to make paninis. So
I'm committing a real social ennui here right now. This is not good for me.
I've done a real ennui. I've taken up too much of your time. I'm gonna get out of here. They're like, are you
all right, ennui?
You just say it like 30 times.
Like a different context every single time.
Every time, but like the first time I thought you maybe mixed it up with faux pas. The second time you clearly used it as a goodbye. But similar to aloha and ciao, you then also used it as hello. So I guess it occupies a space in just language in general.
It's like, really, this is less like a you mixing up with other words situation. More you just decided to make it like your Smurf. Like it's your filler word for everything that might be a complicated idea.
I long for the days where we can all be boiled down to one character personality trait, much like the Smurfs. Unfortunately, I will just be Girl Smurf. There wasn't enough of a wide span there. But Nick, I assume you would be
Ennui Smurf.
Ennui Smurf, yeah. Always coming in with a frowny disposition and a big beard, and your ennui on display.
If there were a grumpy Smurf, it would probably. Was there a grumpy Smurf? Wasn't there? There had to be a grumpy Smurf.
There has to be shithead
I don't know.
Smurf or something like that.
I didn't watch it like ever, so sorry.
We were born, and this feels weird because I feel like we're now the elders of this space, but we were too young for that when it came out. Like that was like my brother and like older sister maybe had that show run, and then we were too old for the movies that came out. So there's like, it only exists because I watched a lot of content created by Gen Xers who grew up with it. So I've seen enough robot chickens where the bit's been given to me. I get what they do.
Gotcha. Yes. So Deku says like Tomura Shigaraki kept fighting to destroy. That was his message. And Spinner's like, wait, he told me to say that? And he says, yeah, he told me to say it specifically to you. He's like, what, so not Toga and Dabi, Mr. Compressed? No, just you. He says like, he told me to say this just to you.
He said not to tell those losers.
Yeah. So Spinner, starts to break a little. He's like, he promised me, he said that he would destroy everything. He represented me and my voice. And when I was oppressed, I was ready to give up on life. I was just some stinking heteromorph. And he gave a guy like me a dream to cling to. And he starts to transform back into his monstrous form. He starts to bulk up as he gets angry. And the doctor starts to call for like security to subdue Spinner, but Deku just waves him off and stops him. Just no.
Let him cook.
Man. There is a pretty cool
his
panel.
Arm starts getting ripped off. No. Spinner's up to something.
No. Everything's fine. On the other hand,
hold on a moment. How many spines are supposed to snap? Like how many of those little things can you break?
You mean vertebrae? No. The whole thing, the cord. You've got one.
So it's okay if I lose it then, right?
It's like an appendix.
That just means I lay down for a lot more in life and whatnot.
It means I get stronger after it's broken, right? Interspersed with Spinner's rant as he just goes into this big giant and grabs Deku in his massive hands are more people expressing their disgust towards Shigaraki and how he was just some crazy guy who had no idea what he was talking about, how he had these dangerous ideas that could spread to more people. And Spinner says, he was a gamer! Which, oh my god, so cringe.
There is a moment, they'll never do it, but I'm sure a million fan edits have existed of like the next character being like, how many times did he say the N-word? Like, well, he was a gamer, so he said it. He had a lot of heated gaming moments.
Oh my god. But he says, like, I was a shut-in and all that I had as reference were video games, and he liked all the things that I liked. He was my very first friend. And it's nice to just have this recognition as one was like, no, he was my friend. We bonded over this shared interest that we had, in addition to being militantly working towards this goal of ours to overthrow society. And although it was kind of weird at the various points when Spinner and Shigaraki would make reference to just random games that were so popular that, you know, you couldn't not know what they were if you had ever touched a game controller, basically. There was, you know, character building to that, which was like, these two had a bond in that sense.
I will say that. Like, it was probably the most humanizing aspect of Shigaraki, was just like, he loved video games and he loved chatting about video games with his buddy. And it's like, damn, like, sure, I can relate to that.
It was about the only time that he wasn't saying, like, I hate you or I'm going to destroy everything, basically. Like, it showed that there was, you know, a human in there. But after he gets all this out, Spinner starts to shrink back down again, and he starts to tear up when he says he was my first friend. And Deku says to him, Shigaraki told me that he needed to be a hero to you all. The League of Villains held a place in his heart, and I'm sure he felt the same way about you as you did him. And that's why I think he wanted me to let you know. Aw. Spinner recognizes that he, you know, kind of lost sight of what he wanted to do in all of this. Yeah, he was turned into a monster by a crazy guy who thought that he had, you know, plans upon plans upon plans, but really he was just a stupid, arrogant asshole. And he realizes, at some point I went past the point of no return, and if only I had taken one more step, maybe I could have saved Shigaraki. And yeah, he wasn't in a position where he would have had an opportunity. Wouldn't have been, you know, a great one, but he just kept on going when All For One was like, no, we're doing things my way, and then didn't really stop anything. So there is a sense of regret in that. Spinner says you guys are going to keep fighting, right? I'm sure that you are going to forget all about what Shigaraki and the League did. You're just going to smile and move on, have good times. Well, I'm going to write a book about Tamura Shigaraki, the symbol of fear, and how the League of Villains live to destroy. A book that'll stick it to you, heroes, forever and ever. The past never dies, and I'll spin the tale of Tamura Shigaraki.
It's going to be called Spinner's Giant Cock, the story of Tamura Shigaraki. And they're like, that doesn't feel like a great way. He's like, well, you know, it's actually kind of a book with two messages.
Really? What's the other message?
Oh, so to make sure everybody knows that Tamura Shigaraki wanted to destroy everything. Okay, then what's the first message? I have a big cock, and I kind of want to get that out there. Kind of want the world to know. It's one of those details you feel like should be shared.
One of those things that you know, write a book to make sure people know it.
One of those things you write a whole autobiography about just so everybody can stay informed. Can you imagine if people did just do that? Like if Tom Hanks' books came out and he was just like, being America's actor, the Tom Hanks story, featuring addendum about giant cock. Like everyone was like, look, while I'm here, I could just throw that out there to the world.
my editor said that in order for us to sell it as a full book, that I needed about like 50 more pages, and so I thought, you know what? I think I've said all I had to say about my, 4-5 decades long acting career, but there's a whole lot more that could be said.
I feel like discussions about the size of my genitalia has been underrepresented in media so far. Mr. Cruz, please. You work so frequently with Disney.
Oh my god. So Deku has a really weird response to Spinner's whole thing, like
make it a comic book.
Make it a comic book.
only with the real thing. The fake idea.
Not the fake.
You can't.
Not
comic books
no.
innately appeal to children, and you can't do that to them. They don't deserve it. The rest of us maybe, but.
Deku dramatically turns just before he leaves through the door and says, "Don't worry, I won't ever forget," which is a pretty cool, like hero thing to do. But just before he can leave, Spinner is like, "No, I get the final word," and says, "Tell your octopus pal to give life all he's got." It's like, "Aw, little note for Shoji there. Isn't that nice?
Yeah,
a little bit of recognition. Yeah." Deku meets
that
up
would be
with
great
Tsukuyoshi.
if that's actually like not actually him, just to tell your octopus friend to give it all he's got is just Shoji's epilogue. Like we don't really get to see
an
him
appearance
again.
after this. Oh,
they're like, but wasn't it nice that you got to think about him? Like, wasn't it nice that we all had a moment where we could be like, I kind of like Soji as a character.
Yeah, I do like him. I wish he would get to do more stuff.
No.
Oh, there's how many chapters left?
No. That's the part we don't want you to think about. We're trying to get rid of that part of you that wants
does
to
the
see
Shoji arc happen?
You know what? If you stay tuned, eagle-eyed viewers.
Will it be in chapter 429 of 430?
Okay, Nick. So, in the way that I loved Shino from Naruto, and then Shino became the teacher at the new school, and
everyone just dunked on him the whole time.
Who is the My Hero character who gets that treatment? Who we see in the My Hero sequel series, who is just a teacher at the school that people kind of dunk on?
Sero.
Is it Sero? Because my mind was like,
Sero.
It could be Soji. Like I was just saying, Nemo. I was like, that doesn't feel insane for a role like him.
No, I get that. Yeah. Or no, I've got it. It's Ojiro.
Oh, tail guy?
Yeah.
That's sad. He needs to get like a 10-10 position somewhere where you're just like
he just sells tails to people.
He's like a handyman, but just for tail related jobs. So you go in and like it's like a sexy lady like, I need help finding out who murdered my husband, and it's just Ojiro.
No. Was it a tail related murder?
He's like, how can me and my tail help you today?
His tail also has a fedora on it.
She's like, I bought a box of cereal, but I put it on a shelf I can't reach without my heels on. Would you be able to get it down?
And I have to reach for something that's... I have to reach for it with something that's at waist height, no higher.
Lady, you got a job.
All right. All right.
I'm sorry if I'm tangenting too much.
Oh my god. The next thing on the docket is that Deku had a request related to Chisaki. Didn't forget about him either. Hey, Chisaki is getting to see through a prison visit the boss, his Yakuza boss guy who was, sick and bedridden when we last saw him. He does have a mask dangling around his neck when he comes to see Chisaki. But he's like, you were never supposed to come out of that coma. And the boss is like, oh yeah, you mean what your quirk did to me? Oh, sure, it's great of you to have done that, Chisaki. I kind of forgot about that point because it's been, several hundred chapters since it came up.
The amount of soul searching that I did when I flipped this page and I got to those two characters. I was like, come on, Quinn. You know who one of these characters is. You just have to. It took me so long before I was like, that's Overhaul. Okay, yeah. All right, I got it. Woo! But it was a strong, 5 minutes of being like, he has to be somebody. This has to be someone significant. We're in the last, 4 chapters of this series.
The boss tells Chisaki, I said to never stray from the path of humanity, and now look how you wound up. Come on, we were honorable Yakuza, like those Astro Royale boys. Good Yakuza, Chisaki. How dare you go down the wrong path?
We settled problems with our fist. We carried lighters. We did what we needed to.
And look what you've done with your lighter. You tried to disintegrate me the way a lighter does. Actually, that's kind of close.
In a way, that's better than 3/4 of the number of fucking lighter-related Astros we've seen so far.
Chisaki starts to cry and apologize, and the boss is just like, hey, it's too late for that, and also, you should be apologizing to Eri, but yeah, I don't want you anywhere near her. She's just gonna forget all about you and all you did to her. So, but don't you dare forget what you did to her.
I do appreciate that there's no redemption for this guy. I think a lot of people are already, even the ones who are comfortable with Endeavor getting anything are just okay, maybe. But there is a moment where you look at Chisaki, you're like, I can't. This guy can't get redeemed. He can make penance. Maybe in an ideal world, that's what we should be expecting. But I'm not going to feel bad for this man. You were a very bad person. You abused a child.
And he didn't do anything afterwards to make up for it. Yeah. He just, had his arms disintegrate off and then cried. So, no.
Yeah. Dork.
Deku is walking with All Might, who's in a wheelchair, good, and Tsukauchi, and he says, yeah, thanks for that. And Tsukauchi says, this is a much better option than making Eri have to relive everything. And Deku just kind of wonders aloud, what do we do to make it all stop for good? And Bright-Eye Tsukauchi says, it's not going to stop. Welcome to the real world, kid. But then it looks like we're getting into suddenly goofier stuff because year 2 for Deku's class is starting, and all the first years are showing up, and all the girls are thinking that Bakugo and Todoroki are hot. Yep.
It makes sense if already we know that there's a fandom for One Direction, but imagine if 2 of the members of One Direction had just saved the planet. They had gotten, into, I'm trying to think of what the equivalent is. They got every oil CEO in a room and exploded them into the atmosphere. And we can use our superpowers to save the planet. I don't ask me to name a member of One Direction right now for this bit. I'm just gonna say Harry Styles, as is the most recent boy band member I do know. But yeah, if Harry Styles launched every oil CEO into space, I'd probably also be yeah, you know what? I think teenage age appropriate girls should be going crazy for this guy.
That does make sense when you put it that way. But it looks like we might be getting into some of the happier future stuff going on here. We'll see.
Could it get darker? Is there someone else?
There hasn't been a lot of follow-up yet with, all the aftermath of Toga, giving her life to save Ochako. So, might be some happy thoughts about that.
That is that as well, yeah.
Anyway, that's for this week, though. There's, 3 chapters left, so...
I believe, don't quote me on that, but I think it was 5. We've seen 2 since then, so I think there's 3.
I think so, yeah.
Nick, you want to talk about Undead Unluck? This is chapter 213, Recollection. So
yeah, I do want to talk about that, Quinn. Thank you for asking. Let's do it.
Awesome. How wow would it be if you were like, no, I don't.
No, let's not talk about that at all, actually.
And I'm like, oh, okay.
No reason. We'll go back to doing it next week, but we're just not going to talk about it
not this week. Yeah.
No reason.
There's not problematic art or anything in it. Just not feeling it.
It's actually kind of like really plot relevant. Like there's a lot of explanation for stuff's going on. There's a lot of like character bonding and stuff. But no, we're not going to talk about it.
Fuck that. No, we are going to talk about it. It opens with Fuko. Her and her gang are riding on Kitoon, and she is discussing her soul and the fact that it is sturdier now, and that before, since the fight with Beast, she always felt like something was leaking out of her, and now that sensation is gone. And we, the audience, know it's because the vessel that houses the soul has been restored now, so it's not leaking anymore. And Fuko is thinking to herself, she's like, I am a little curious about something. Kururu said that she was the one pulling the strings behind everything this whole time. But we managed to save me and claim Kururu, who, by the way, they're really just like, we worked out Kururu. I know the last time you saw her, we had tied her up and gagged her and were kidnapping her. But that's fine now. We're fucking like best friends, so don't worry about that.
She's throwing a bit of a fit in the background of some of these panels.
She is like
she's
rear
strangling
naked,
Julia.
Yeah, she's like rear naked choking her, but Fuko's like part of my friends. Like she's already being included in their counts basically. So Fuko is thinking like, we did everything we meant to accomplish here, and if what my parents did simply defied his expectations, I leave it at that. But I think he was looking for something else. Like, I'm overlooking something. So we get a small message from Void, and it took me so long to realize this was Layla. Like, there is that line actually put in there, but I really paused for a bit. I was like, who the fuck is this girl? But Void and Layla have recruited Bunny from an orphanage. And Fuko gets that message. She's like, okay, it's now or never. We basically recruited everybody. So she gets up and she announces to everybody, the acoustics, by the way, insane. That cloud is moving in the air. I don't know how anyone's hearing her, but she's going to do this whole speech. So she just says, all of us were former teammates and former enemies. And she's like, look, as negators, we all had desires that we wanted to make come true, and they came into conflict with one another. And we may be on the same side now, but there were times where we plotted to take each other's seats, or take the round table, or fight over loot privilege, or even betrayed each other for our loved ones' sake. And we can see in the background, maybe this was the genius of why they picked some of the characters they did for the boy band part, because most of the people who had antagonistic relationships with them in the past were kind of here, like Shen and Rip and Billy, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that monster Sean, he was always in their faces about everything.
I mean, to be fair, that's probably one of the biggest ones, because he is like straight up like their good bud now, and the original Loop, he was just straight killed. He did just get straight up murdered without any other additional character details. So she's like, look, we've done everything. We've done all these battles, and we got the chance to loop together under like a united principle. At the very end, everyone, again, except for Void and Sean, you didn't really get the choice in this. You were dead long before we ever got to that point. But everyone believed in me to do this loop. So we all agreed to it. And it's why I put everything into this, and why I've needed to reunite everybody as soon as possible, because each of you put your faith in me and helped me grow, but you are also people in this loop who are different than the versions of yourself that I knew in the past. And I was really afraid, because when I first met Mr. Nico, I thought to myself, oh, this isn't the Nico, like, I don't know this Nico. And yet I do. And we actually cut over to Nico, who is crying at this. Because it brought her so much relief, because she was like, you're not going to be the one I know. And then she got there, she's like, actually, you are. So it's very, very sweet. And she's like, from then on, I kept reuniting people, and I don't know what to do, because all of you are so strong and you're so kind. And I thought, if we just prevented your tragedies, we wouldn't have to fight, and we could all become friends. And we have everyone now, except for one person, Tatiana Untouchable. And there's a brief discussion of Tatiana and her powers. Good reminder in case you're somebody who's like...
It's been a while since she showed up, yeah.
Yeah, it's been like 3 years, 4 years.
It's not been 3 years. There's no way.
No, it's not. It moves quicker than that. It's probably only 2 years because I think last year opened with Void's backstory. So I guess it's only like 2 years and some change.
It's somewhere in the realm of 2 years because she was there at the close of the loop.
Yeah.
Helping to fight off Sun.
Yeah. It just feels so much fucking longer.
Yeah.
There's been, if you were to like actually break it down into arcs, I would say like, I don't know, like 20 arcs have happened since then. Like there's been a lot of stories that they've just told in this time loop. Anyways, everyone's kind of reacting to her ability, and particularly they note like, oh wait, isn't, what makes Tatiana famous is that she's a model, and Fuko's like, yes. If her powers activate, she wouldn't be able to wear the clothes that she loves or work as a model anymore. So like that's their like, okay. Even more personal than not being able to have human touch anymore. Also, her career as a model would end because all of the clothes would explode off. For nude modeling is this whole other category, but we're not going to worry about that. And everyone's just like, okay, so do we let it manifest or do we try to stop it? Like, what do we do? And Fuko says, I made her promise that we'd be friends again. And I don't know if that might change depending on how she is now. But we all bore harsh pasts previously. Basically, we all had a rough life with all of our tragedies. And like, I want everyone to be full of joy. I want everyone to have a happy ending here. So whether she fights alongside us or not, once we prevented Tatiana's tragedy, I plan on using Remember. Because we'll have everybody at that point. And I want everyone to know about our past, responsibilities, our regrets, everything we did. I want everyone to know it so that way, when we head into the final battle, we will, there's nothing holding us back. We're all going to be united front, and we will fight to win a future where the 10 superior rules and God just don't exist. So is that okay with everybody? Can I use Remember? And there's just a unified, Roger, essentially, from all of the different members of Union who are absolutely okay with that because they have the utmost faith in Fuko. And we end the chapter with Kunto-un flying off into the distance and Fuko saying, let's go save her. Our last member, Tatiana.
I just looked it up, by the way, to confirm it. The previous loop ended and Fuko went on to the current one in chapter 132. So that's it's been just over 80 chapters since we've seen Tatiana in that case, because she was part of that final struggle, which another way of looking at it is 40% of the manga has gone by since we have seen her. So
that's a better way to, it's been a bit. It is absolutely been a bit.
We both really, really like Tatiana's character, and I am very interested to see how she will be different, both in terms of setup and how she ultimately turns out. Because as we've had a couple of discussions about to this point, so is the tragedy going to be prevented so she doesn't need the ball thing? But the ball thing is the iconic look for her. So are we just
I mean, it's also going to be interesting to see how she's going to play, because I would consider her probably one of the more major characters of the previous loop, but there's like already kind of an established dynamic with like Gina and Sean as like the Fuko close friends. So are we going to like add her to that? And like Julia also is like fitting into that. So I'll be curious to see what they're going to try to do to fit her in personality wise with everyone, because not for nothing, but if Top's anything to go off of, she might just be pushed to the back pretty quickly. Like, it's just like, look, sorry, we kind of established more important.
It's too many characters in Union. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, sorry, guys. There's like fucking 30 of us. I don't know what to tell you. Oops.
All right. Nice setup chapter for like, hey, it's going to be the finish of Union, ... until we also get Andy. So looking forward to this. This feels like it's going to be a big arc with all this big preamble, and I appreciate that. Let's go over to Blue Box.
Blue Box.
It's chapter 156, Winning. Okay. So, last chapter, out of the blue, Taiki's father asked Chinatsu after they got back from Taiki competing in the Badminton Nationals, are you guys going out? And Taiki is seemingly passed out still at this point. And Chinatsu just looks at Taiki's dad. Yes.
That'd be great.
Straight up.
His next response, he's like, huh. And did you eat the last pudding in the fridge? Because, like, I thought we had kind of established you let everyone know if you're going to do that. And, like,
You've kind of, like, violated the sanctity of this household by not...
I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Not about the Taiki thing.
I need to talk to your father about how you ate the last pudding cup and didn't say anything.
Oh, Mr. Chinatsu, I have a big problem. She's like, his name would be Mr. Chinatsu.
So...
You know my last name.
So, Mr. Inamata says, like, yeah, I kind of had the feeling that, yeah, maybe you were okay, because we were at the Katsudan, and I kind of overheard Taiki's friends talking about him having a girlfriend, so it kind of got me thinking. And then I realized that there was kind of something that seemed to be different between you two. So I guess you're going out. And Chinatsu apologizes, like, yeah, I'm sorry that, because you guys did take me into your home and now this is happening. And he's like, no, it's fine. Like, you guys are, you're around the same age. And I guess we should have figured that this could have happened. But the only thing that I'm concerned about is, I mean, are you not going to tell your father about this? And Chinatsu kind of like awkwardly, grabs her elbow and she says, I'm afraid to do that. Because in the worst case scenario, I might have to move out then. And I know it's because, like, my father was against me staying alone in Japan to begin with. And the only reason that he allowed me to do so is because he realized, like, oh, I'm going away on work. And he respected what I and my mother wanted to do. And he's allowing me to do this because I'm playing basketball, but I didn't succeed at basketball yet. So if I were to announce to him that I'm in a relationship without doing that, then he would judge me harshly for that.
And how harshly is your dad going to judge you for eating the last pudding cup? To be clear, which is the main crux of our conflict right now.
I think that on day one, Chinatsu, I established to you that the last pudding cup in the refrigerator is the most delicious. Yeah. Not because of any innate quality that the pudding itself has, but because of what it represents. And what that represents is something that is very dear to me, and I am very protective of.
Also...
Not like who your son is dating. Listen, that is...
Tyke, what
Don't
now?
try and change the subject on me, Miss Pudding Cup Stealer.
Also, should you be having so much pudding, Mrs. Broken Ankles, at the tournament? Okay. Maybe,
don't you know that the pudding cups shatter your bones?
She's like, is there supposed to be milk in it? I don't know. What am I, some kind of pudding scientist? No, I'm a pudding enjoyer. Or at least I would be. If there was,
if I had one,
there was some goddamn ennui in this house.
Listen, Chinatsu, I want to play a song for you. It's by a little group from the United Kingdom, and it says, "How can you have your pudding if you don't win at basketball?"
I thought it was just gonna be the Beatles stop song. Every time she goes to the fridge, she just starts playing stop. Like, oh,
she's like, I'm pretty sure he meant a different music band than this, but I guess.
You know what they say about old Taiki's dad? Nothing. I know nothing about him before this sudden.
I've never talked to any of his friends. In fact, I knew nothing about him until now, so I guess I shouldn't be this shocked about this.
He does walk around in a t-shirt that says, "I love eating the last pudding out of the fridge." I should have been keeping that in mind.
Oh god. Anyway, in reality, Chinatsu says that, look, if I tell him about this relationship, if I were to get his approval on this, the first thing I need to do is actually achieve something that I said I was going to. So I'm going to win the Winter Cup, and that'll prove to him that I did stay for the reasons I was staying for, and then I can think about telling him about my relationship with Taiki. So Mr. Inamata kind of looks at her with this look of, teenagers have so much going on these days kind of look. And he's like, all right, I'll pretend that I didn't notice anything. So he says, I kind of do get where you're both coming from. And I understand that, it's hard for me to just tell you what to do. I believe in you. I'm sure that you've got a plan here. I'm just going to leave you to it. And hey, your father might surprise you. Maybe he'll be different than you think he is. And then
great. It like cuts over to her dad, and he's just like shoveling puppies into an incinerator. And he's like, it may not be easy work, but it is rewarding.
He's like, it's hard work, but I came to America to earn money for my family.
As we all know, the need to fuel our incinerators with puppies has been a big issue in America. So we're importing talent from all across the world wherever we can.
Thank you for the job, Mr./Mrs. Insert any celebrity here that you think could be evil enough for that. There's probably plenty that you could think of right now. I'm not gonna narrow it down for you. No. There's so many.
He's like, but just know, for all of your puppy shoveling needs, just remember me, Mr. Chinatsu. Dad.
I don't know what my own name is. Taiki's mother calls Chinatsu off to help her with something, and Taiki's dad kind of looks down at him while he's passed out on the floor, and he says, and as for you, you better behave appropriately. I'm counting on you. And Taiki, at some point, seemingly woke up during this because he's hiding his face, but we hear in his narration, I know. So complication has been added to the dynamic here. As far as we know, only Taiki's dad now knows, not necessarily Taiki's mom. So we'll see what becomes of that. In the meantime, badminton things need to be happening because the third years are getting set to graduate. Nishida says it's time that we select our next leader, and I would like Kyo to be the new team captain. Which, like, yeah, sure. That makes sense. We know 2 people in the right year for this, and Kyo's a better pick for captain than Taiki. Yes. Haruyu nominates Taiki to be the vice captain, and like everyone's like, yeah, Kyo's good for this. He's calm and logical. And he's a great teacher and stuff. And everyone's like saying this all in front of Taiki, and is like, are you saying that I'm not good at those things? It's like, yes,
Taiki. Yeah. I don't know how to tell you this. Yeah.
Kyo accepts very respectfully, and then the club cheers him on and comes in to congratulate his appointment, including Ayame, who instead of being all super pumped up for it, she just kind of goes, "You got this," and it seems to mean a lot to him. And that's nice. We follow Haruto over to the locker area. He runs into Hina, who greets him with
I love their dynamic. It is one of those ones that I'm genuinely like, I kind of want to see them get together, because there is such an adorable nature to just how much surface level non-chemistry they have, which is just every time she sees this guy, she's immediately just like, why? What did I do to deserve this?
So Haruto's like, why do you talk like that whenever you see me? And she says, what do you expect? You said weird things to me out of nowhere. And she tries to, sun him and say listen, my dear little junior, you shouldn't speak so out of turn that way. And he goes, Haruto. What? Don't just call me your junior. My name's Haruto. Straight up inviting her, like, no, use my first name, which is kind of a big thing for someone younger to establish to the person that he's like, I like you romantically. Like, this is such a crazy thing for someone in this situation to do.
We are watching Haruto speed run Blue Box, where he's just like, hey, I'm gonna walk up to you. I really like you. I have feelings for you. Use my first name. We should hold hands. Let's go. And you're like,
I haven't agreed to go out with you at all.
We're like, whoa, Buster. It took Taiki like 120 chapters to start getting to this spot. All right.
Yeah, rookie. So, I love Hina's reaction because she's shocked for a second, and then she goes, I don't have to call you anything, and walks away from it.
It's such a great image. Like, I love how just, like, sunken and sullen her eyes are in this movie. She's just like, I don't have to call you shit.
This is like the G-rated version of her saying, no, fuck you!
Yeah, eat shit and die.
In the meantime, the third years are still around for the club, so Nishida says, like, hey, so we've got a training camp coming up. We're going to be by the beach. And so some people are like, oh, do we have to do this? Oh, but prefectural qualifiers are happening and stuff. Oh, wait, I'm getting confused here. This is the basketball club that's actually discussing things. I get confused because we see no one's faces until we see Chinatsu's. Like...
Yeah, it's not the easiest thing.
So they're going to training by the beach, and then Nishida comes over to some of the others and is like, hey guys, this weekend we're gonna, go on a trip to recharge from nationals. Because they had a big thing. So we cut to that trip. The basketball club, because there's guys and girls clubs, are doing like scrimmages running up and down the court, while Taiki and the rest of the badminton club just kind of casually walk past because they're relaxing this week. This is their job to, relax and recharge. And a few people are like, oh, I do feel kind of bad that we're, goofing off over this. And it's like, no, this is our job right now. Rest, relax, summertime, enjoy ourselves. And there's like a 2-page spread-ish of them dashing off to the beach to have a good time.
It is crazy to think about. Like, I don't know why. I just never really put a ton of thought into it, that I'm like, we might be pretty close to essentially like the end. Like, I feel like we're about 2/3 of the way through Blue Box, or coming very close to it.
It feels exactly like we're around 2/3 through.
Like, there's that moment where you're like, there's only 1 year left to do. We're getting relatively-ish close to, like, the end of the school year for them and whatnot. I guess not in, like, they're not right up against it, but they're getting a decent way through. Especially as we keep, like, jumping from, like, one event to the next. It's going to be interesting to see how fast this series moves from here.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always good. I'd like the chance to see Taiki and characters relax. Kind of what I'm talking about even in that moment. I would love to get a couple more, like, slice of life almost kind of chapters for some of these characters. Like a chance to kind of breathe for a little bit. Like, I would like the rest and relaxation that is also being afforded here. So maybe we could just have some silly little fun and then jump to the next thing.
Speaking of rest and relaxation, Quinn, there's none of that in this chapter. Kaiju number 8, chapter 110. Mina, Kafka, teaming up. Finally, it happened. They're doing it. They're doing it. We cut from like them as kids saying, let's wipe out the kaiju, to them as adults staring down Kaiju number 9, getting set to attack him. And Mina says, now neutralizing Kaiju number 9, doing their big battle engagement. Let's fight line. And the two of them dash off. They're dodging around Kaiju number 9's attacks. And as they do so, we see that at some point they had a chance to have a quick conversation, probably while, like the smoke was clearing and Kaiju number 9 was, dramatically standing up. And so Kafka let Mina know in this time I've still got 2 techniques that he doesn't know about. So if I can hit his core before he can figure them out, we win. But if I can't, eh. So Mina says she's going to provide covering fire for him, help strip away the shield, and she says, put everything you've got into hitting that core. And so the 2 of them engage. Kafka directly, starts punching at number 9, and he blocks it, starts to summon one of his explosive pulsating things, but Mina just shoots it before he can blow it up and utilize it as a weapon, then distracts him, which allows Kafka to dash in and punch, and it gets blocked, but he actually breaks into the arm that he blocks with. Number 9 again tries to attack him, this time by doing his charge him a laser breath attack, and again just pew pew pew. Mina shoots at him, knocks out his footing, and so he can't get a follow-up attack in on Kafka. That was the big thing whenever the 2 of them were one-on-one, was that Kafka would come in for a really big attack and it's no, get countered. And so he can't do a follow-up attack while Mina is doing this. And Okunogi has a big thing oh my god, she's so powerful, but also so precise. It's it is good to see that, Mina can do more than just shoot big gun.
Yeah.
In this moment. Which is very different. Their set is oh my god, this is, we never get to see Captain Ashiro do this kind of stuff. And it's well, yeah, she's got a different partner that she's working with right now.
And also, usually she's sniping things from really far away with a giant cannon. Here, they're actually seeing oh, you actually have a lot of on foot tactics and techniques to use. You have a good view of the battlefield and stuff like that. You're only bad with blades as a comical joke, basically.
Right. She has been a kaiju elimination officer for a decade at this point, so she knows a few things. Eye Patch Guy in the control hub also points out that, Kaiju number 8 can actually use techniques that he's already used before because number 9 can't exclusively concentrate on countering them right now. So it completely changes the rhythm of the battle. And number 9 tries to use his shockwave technique. Kafka has analyzed it by this point, and he's able to dash and fall his way through it and then land a strike. And he is countering techniques that Isao would normally use. But then another thing happens as number 9 grows a tail that unleashes a wave of explosions, and everyone's oh shit, that's not a Kaiju number 2 technique, nor is it a Kaiju number 9 technique. What the hell is that? There's all these different abilities, and Mina realizes in that moment, hey, I saw countless Kaiju inside of number 9, so that thing still has tricks up its sleeve. The 2 of them are attacking him from both fronts. So there's a really cool shot of the 2 of them, each facing one of the 2 heads that number 9 has grown, as they keep on going after him. Mina gets chucked into a wall, and Kafka gets driven by what look like tree roots almost into another one. And for a second, it looks oh well, they're fucked. We can, even the strongest 2 weapons we've got in our entire defense force can't beat this thing. What do we do? But Kafka is not all that surprised. He says, you are the guy that Captain Narumi and I couldn't lay a scratch on. So he says, he thinks to himself, I worked on these combat techniques with Hoshina, didn't tell anyone about them so that we could have a huge ace in the hole that no one would know about and that number 9 would never have a counter for. But this is something that I searched for entirely on my own. So not even Vice Captain Hoshina knew about this. An ace even deeper in the hole. Also, apparently Narumi was there, so maybe he knew about it.
Yeah. I assume someone has to be there to be don't kill this guy. He's not evil. He's not turning evil.
And so Kaiju thinks to himself, I can control it for 1 minute. And his body starts to surge and pulsate and go, kill, kill, kill. As Kafka says, yeah, you want to kill. I'm going to set you free. So give me your strength. And the image of the original grub that went inside of his body appears behind him as he does a form change. He puts on his hollow mask, Quinn,
Yes.
to unleash his monstrous side and get a power boost.
Sure, I think that's like a logical progression for the series to make. Characters battling against their inner darkness is just like a like I don't want to say like commonality. Like it's in almost every battle manga series. Like there's almost always some character who has a dark inner power that they have to wrestle against or whatever. So, cool. But I think this works. I'll be excited to see what this means because I don't think we're really seeing too much that like defines what that like visual model might look at in this panel. Like he's a little spikier.
Just get a look at his face, yeah.
And then like the veins here kind of look like they're black or whatever. Like that part that sometimes will be like blue on his character model. I don't know if it is or not, but it looks like it might be here.
Yeah.
But,
most of his design is covered up right now.
Yeah.
So
we'll see what
that
it
makes
looks
sense.
like.
Yeah.
See what it looks like. Probably be cool, but I don't know. I'm excited to see it. I'm also excited to talk about Spy Family.
Let's do that then. That sounds like a good idea.
Oh wow, we get to do that now? That's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow, man.
It's a good thing that I have this tab open next.
Yeah. You know what I'd love to read after that?
No. I don't.
One Piece, Nick.
Oh.
Oh, that's not gonna happen this week.
That's
Damn.
I mean, we can pick out a random chapter, but.
Hey guys, we're jumping back for one random chapter in the Whiskey Peak saga. I hope you guys really want us to talk about Mr. 5.
Mission 101. So Martha is still making her way back home after being stranded during the war. And we're still here. And I don't say like it's a bad thing. I say that in the sense of like, oh, it makes me feel bad a lot. So, she has eaten the food that the old one who found her and saved her life has given her, and now she's just kind of wandering, trying to find food and find her way back to the front line so that she can go home. When she goes to get some food in a food line, someone's like, "Oh, do you have your ration card?" And she's like, I left it at home. I better go get it. So that's no help. And there are notices out there saying like, hey, there's looting by all these Austanian soldiers. So, report crimes if you see anyone. And she realizes like, shit, I've got to hide myself. Or they're just going to gun me down on sight. So she goes to like a farm where there's nobody around, borrows some sheep shears to cut her hair, and then dresses up, like disguises herself as a man so that she won't be immediately recognizable as a female Estonian soldier who, was butchered at the front lines. But she doesn't really have a plan as to how she's going to get back home because, she wasn't exactly planning on doing this. So she's like, all right, I got to be careful, and I've got to also get food and stuff. There is a guy who just passes by, sees her studying a map, and she's like, yeah, my grandmother gave me the map. And he says, okay, well, don't let your map get confiscated by the military, which is just concerning. It's like, you have information. The military will take that from you. Okay. I don't know enough about wars to know if that was like a thing. Like, obviously, like, stuff got conscripted by the army all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Maps is just like, it's something that I just have never thought of or heard about being a thing that would be done that way.
I think particularly with the material she's looking at, that this is like a map that shows her like, topographically. That's how do you say it?
Topographically.
Topographically? I've never said that word before in my life. I had no idea how to say it. But like it shows her essentially those elements that maybe this person is seeing is like, oh, you're not supposed to have shit like that. Not during a war. Not like this. Topography. Topography
is the noun for it. Yes.
Gotcha.
So Martha, has to be like make her way through the elements. She's hungry, she's cold, but she said I love this narration that she has where she's like dramatically walking through the wilderness. I have to get back to the people I love. That determination would be enough to keep my feet moving. Next panel, she's collapsed.
I just wish like it was in like a location that you're like, I wish it like I could imagine that this was like just several feet ahead, and she's like, damn it, actually I don't have the energy. But very clearly she has like traveled a long period.
Oh yeah. Just like she's collapsed. She's tripped over one of the branches that you see in the first panel or something. Yeah. She can't really bring herself to move, and she just kind of like starts to cry because she's so weak and tired. And then she hears an engine, and a military vehicle drives up right next to her, and it's with Stalis soldiers. And they're immediately like, looks like that's an Estanian. And one of them pulls up a rifle and it is like, yeah, should I kill him? And the other says, let him go. War's over, remember? And a ceasefire has been called while Martha has been out here wandering around. And the trucks drive off without her, but eventually some Estanian troops who are assigned to bring their soldiers back find her. And so they pull her onto a truck in the back with about, half a dozen guys who are all, wounded, bundled up against the elements. And Martha's like, wow, a lot of other people who, got left here behind enemy lines, just like me. Randomly, one of the soldiers, who's pretty heavily wounded, he's got his arm in a sling and his head bandaged up, and he's like pretty rough. He's like, "You're Martha from the women's battalion, right? I saw your picture in the paper." Okay, you've got like perfect facial recognition, buddy, but okay.
He's like, it's one of the many characteristics about myself I'll quickly list off, just in case something were to happen to me.
I want everyone to remember who I am in case I never get a chance to establish this ever again.
Sure,
that won't happen, though.
Yeah, you know what your mom always says, take every opportunity to let everyone know about your perfect memory, maybe a couple character quirks about yourself, a couple relationships you can long over, and then, just in case you had to get out of here, you leave a lasting memory.
He offers her some water and is like, "Hey, we get to go home now. You look a little bit happier." One of the other soldiers says, "We didn't win and we didn't lose the war. So what was the point of all the fighting?" And Mr. Head Bandaged McCheerful says,
his name is Paul.
Yeah, that's true. It says it in the next panel.
Yeah,
his name is Paul. He says it in the next page.
I just want to make sure we know, because again, this character has shown up. He's dropping a couple little factoids about himself. My name's Paul. I'm from Berlin. I know your face. Like, you got to keep these in mind, because this guy's going to probably show back up again.
He cheers Martha up by pointing out, like, hey, we did fight for a reason. We were protecting our homes and our families and stuff. And Martha says, like, yeah, hey, thanks. And her narration says, yeah, look, no one liked the way the war ended for us. But if we didn't find some positive spin out of it, then our hearts would have just shattered. Because it was pointless, and she says, like, hey, he says, I'm Paul. I'm from Berlin. And she says, well, I'm also from Berlin. And he's, oh, no way. Berlin's one of the most populous cities in our country. You're from... All right, calm down. They get on a train after that keeps on bringing them along. Even though, like, they're going home, they're still, like, wounded and tired and hungry. So Martha's pretty miserable over it. Paul, again, offers her some water and is like, hey, when we get back to Berlin, how's about we get married? And she does a literal spit take.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, I guess. I don't know if trapped in the train car on our way back home from the war is the best place to do this. Multiple reasons. One, if she says no, which she does, it's going to make that rest of that train ride so awkward. Like, everyone's going to be like, that's Paul. He proposed to a girl he's never even just met, and she said no. What the fuck?
You know what his pickup line was? I recognize your face from the paper. Like, so, ugh.
That's what an insane person would do. This Paul's an insane person. They're all insane in Berlin. I've heard that.
So, Martha turns him down, and he's like, "Oh, do you already have a husband?" It's like, "What's wrong with you, Paul? What's wrong with you?" But she says, "No, my heart belongs to another." Aww.
Can you imagine? Like you've met those people, Nick, who are just like chatters, who are
Yeah.
just like they want to talk, and you're like, I'm on the fucking train ride back home from a war I did not really want to be in. I want nothing more than peace and quiet. And you got a guy who's just like working hard or hardly working as he sits down next to you, like, I can't. I want to go back to the war at this point.
I love how Paul immediately after talking to Martha is like, "Okay, we'll get better." Goes over to a different guy. Have some water. You want to get married when we get
Oh
married?
yeah, this guy's proposing to everyone on the train. He is just like, look, you throw out 100 lines, one of them's gonna get a bite. And
Absolutely.
that'd be great if someone's like, no, not if you're throwing it into your bathtub. You don't like you're not guaranteed to get a bite. There has to be fish somewhere, buddy. I don't know if this is the right place for that.
This is just algae. You're not gonna find it. I do kind of like that after she thinks about Henry, that she has the thought like, when I get home, what should I tell him? Which is just kind of a sign of like, she's, starting to return to the level of safety that she can afford to think about those things, which is, nice. They spend several weeks on the train, traveling and getting more people and picking them up until finally they reach Berlin. And they get home, and they're like, "We're here, we're home, we're in Berlin." Martha turns over and shakes Paul. "Hey, we're in Berlin." He's fucking dead.
It's one of these weird things that I was like, we have like this like flashback has been like it's about war. Like there's like a brutal honesty to it that you just do have to showcase, and oftentimes media is good at like just showing you like the casual horror of war and the casualties of it. But there is a moment of just like narrative unsatisfaction of just like, hey, not Paul who I met 3 pages ago.
Another guy in the train's like, yeah, he was his body was cold last night, so he just couldn't make it. And Martha's like, this isn't fair, and she starts to cry. Yeah, she's been through a lot already. Yeah. And the guy's like, we gotta get off the train. We're home now.
Well, you can't say that, Erie Gray, or I feel bad. Erie Gray in our chat saying he might have died because he was sharing his water and didn't keep enough for himself. But again, if we're gonna use Paul as our butt monkey this episode, I don't need small details that make me appreciate him more. Damn it!
And afterwards, people are like, "What did Paul die of?" "Oh, it was MRSA."
Oh.
Oh.
Who drank from that water bottle?
So, Martha gets off the train, and I do like the detail of like she's home. It's the same shot basically as when she was walking through the wilderness by herself. And yeah, no one's there to greet her off the train because everyone thought she was dead. Yeah. So it's gonna be a interesting return to whatever's waiting for her after everything. We know the only thing we really know from this point forward is that, of course, she starts working for the Black Bells, and that Henry at some point learned about her because he wasn't, like shocked out of his mind when he saw her in the present. So. But there's not a whole lot left. She has
to go see him and find out he's married, and it's just and it's just the awkward like they go their separate way, and then like fucking 50 years pass or wherever we're at in the story now.
I imagine that next chapter might be the last one, the flashback.
I think so. I don't think there's too much.
There might be enough to milk one more, I think, depending on how you pace out, their reunion. but there can't be a lot more to this. Yeah, what a nice good times flashback this has been, everybody.
It's been going great.
We gotta talk about other things though, like Astro Royale, Quinn.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Do it.
We got to find out, because we found out this guy is really strong. He doesn't even need an Astro to beat people up, which is going to be nice, because I feel like our group so far has been missing like a core level of physicality. Like, this is a party with a lot of wizards, a lot of spellcasters. They don't have like a good front line, like get in there, rough and tussle kind of tank.
Yeah.
So
nobody fights hand to hand.
Yeah.
So you need,
sometimes you just need a physical element in your group cohesion.
Absolutely. So Tora mashes the nail guy's face, just presses him into the ground, and then drags him with one hand and uses him to beat up all the other guys standing in their way. Just swings him around like a club, and everyone's like, whoa!
I will say this. It's the coolest thing a character has really done in this series so far. Absolutely. So I'll give props to that.
Yeah. So he beats up all the guys that were doing the security checkpoint, and everyone's like, whoa, he's so strong even without an Astro. The little girl is like, thanks, Tora. Now I can go see my mommy in the hospital. All of a sudden, Hibaru's like, go ahead without me, and starts running back the way that they came because he forgot something. They go to the hospital. Unbelievably, this girl's mom is alive and actually looking okay. So she rushes in to see her, and they reunite. They're all having a conversation. Of course, Hibaru's still not there. Nono says, like, oh, yeah, her grandma has been calling me saying that she went missing, and I filed a missing person report, but the police couldn't do much due to the disaster. I'm shocked that they have the ability to have missing person reports right now.
That they have like an operating phone line is kind of crazy to me.
So yeah, they say like, oh yeah, Nono was helping out our friend who passed out on the road. And Nono says, yeah, his name is Hibaru. He wears funny clothes, but he's nice. All right. I guess she did make a comment on his attire last chapter, I guess.
You're like, this is coming from a little girl in a fucking clasped hood? Like, I don't think you get to talk shit about people, whatever you're for.
There is a weird moment where Nono goes outside to play with the boys after, going through all that she went through to reach her mom. She's like, me, like, all right, gotta go play now. She leaves her there.
It's tag time, so we're gonna go outside. We're gonna play tag. All right, goodbye. No girls allowed.
Meanwhile, the only two other female characters in this scene, Kinpa and her mother, have a little conversation.
Nick, and you think a woman would want to go, like, any girl that's older than like a child would never want to play fucking games outside. That's a totally masculine thing.
Yeah, ignore that little girl who's outside playing tag with
I know if someone gave me the option of, would you like to go outside and play a slightly physical game, or would you like to sit inside with a stranger who's in the hospital and just make small talk? I know I would absolutely pick the one that would send my anxiety skyrocketing. I'd be like, oh yeah, I'll stay here with your mom. This child I don't know, and then your mom I know even less.
But Quinn, it's very important that specifically Kinpa stays with the mother for this, because Kinpa looks at the people playing tag and says, looks like they're fast friends, which is an observation only she could make.
Yes.
And then Nono's mother says, I haven't seen Nono smile like that in ages. Her heart closed off after my husband passed away. She never cries, no matter how tough things get. Which is something that she would only say to, another woman.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yes.
And then Kinpa says, she's a really strong girl.
You think any of those musclehead idiot boys would have been able to fucking utter a compliment towards this child? No, they'd be too busy thinking about muscles. You ask them like their thoughts, and they're like, duh. There had been nothing, you know? Even though Tarasu was outside actively shaking and being like, be gentle, I'm scared of this physical activity for children.
No, don't make me play with the child. No.
And, like, there is no one else. Like, you cannot imagine if I like went up to Tarasi right now. He's like, no, I'd rather be out here. Like, I guarantee he'd be like, no, I want to stay out of the sun. I don't want to get sweaty. I don't want you to get my clothes dusty. Like,
well, the problem for me here is that I can either get like sweaty and be in the heat and everything, or I could be around two women talking about things.
And we
so
know how women love to blab. You know, you can't stop them once they get started. And they're doing that.
Kibaru's like, maybe Tarasu shouldn't be the leader.
They're doing that reverse Bechdel test where it's two women talking about another woman, and it's like, ugh, gross.
Why can't they talk about a man while they're alone together?
They just look at the little fucking girl, and they're like, why can't you be a boy? So that they would be talking about something worthwhile up there.
Hibaru gets back, he's covered in mud, and he presents Nono with the 4-leaf clover that she gave him.
Aww.
And he's like, yeah, you wanted to give it to your mom, right?
He found the one that fell. Not even like, oh, he must have dug around to find another one. He specifically went to find that exact 4-leaf clover that fell off a fucking highway.
Bridge. Didn't get caught by the wind and taken anywhere.
No.
Directly underneath it. So Nono's mom leans out the window and she shouts, No, it's okay to cry when you're happy. That's what Daddy would do. Your daddy who's dead. And so he's incapable of crying or being happy anymore.
Remember your dead dad?
You're crying because you're happy, right? That's what those tears are for?
Your dad's dead. Now I'm in the hospital. Grandma's just old. So I want you to know there's 3 different kind of levels of tragedy in your family, but they all are distinctly different.
And then, Quinn, we reach a point that I like to call the series got canceled, didn't it? Because
I will say, I will keep us from uttering that. Its first release did relatively decent.
I did hear that.
Decent enough that you don't assume it's going to be an immediate cancellation, or at least like other stuff will go. That doesn't necessarily guarantee itself, but this is usually a good first step in lasting.
This is either, well, the series got canceled, or, yay, the series didn't get canceled, so I'm going to set up for an arc, because I know what that is.
Yes.
So, all of a sudden, directly after the big emotional, the little girl is now capable of crying again, we suddenly have Tarazo get a call on his cell phone, because, as Kimpa points out, wait, cell phones work? And he's like, yeah, the cell towers nearby must be safe.
Cool,
sure.
That's convenient.
Okay.
The series is one of the most bizarre takes on like an apocalyptic story, where they're like, anything that would inconvenience or hinder our heroes has either survived or survived enough in a state that it doesn't impede them. But anything that would never even remotely impact them in their lives, fucking gone, obliterated. They're like, oh yeah, the police, they're destroyed. It can't even possibly. But don't worry, all of our cell phones still work, and our cars have gas, and like all of the, like, sure, all right, whatever.
Tarazo gets a call that says, boss, they're gonna destroy the Roppongi branch. He's like, what are you talking about? And we cut to the Yotsurugi Hawk faction Shinjuku branch, where Shio Yotsurugi, the oldest adopted son of the family, and its underboss, who's dressed in a snazzy suit, is on the phone with Guido, who is a creepy hoodie-wearing guy. And he's got these weird, like, vaguely lighter-looking things floating around near him. They look like scythes, but whatever. They're on fire. I don't trust him. So he says, like, yeah, I'm gonna purge the Tora faction and do some astro hunting and stuff. And Shio says, the thing I seek lies beyond that power. And Gito's like, oh, does that have something to do with the energy development you're pushing for? But Shio ignores the question and says, like, I'm counting on you. And Gito says, like, yeah, I'll do anything as long as it makes you happy. And he extends his hand out, and a bunch of gnarled black roots, massive roots, start growing through the building in front of him. And he says, time to make Shio proud. And he clenches his fist as Tarazo, the guy on the phone with him, says, I'm sorry, but the Roppongi branch, it's got to be destroyed. And we get a full introduction to Kiyoshika Gito, the advisor to Shio, the underboss of the faction. And he clenches his fist and he says, when you find a nest of worthless bugs, you crush them. And the roots coil and collapse the building behind him while he walks off with his hands in his pockets, because that's what you do when you destroy a building. You have to walk away with your hands in your pockets very casually.
Yeah.
Shio.
What else would you do, Nick?
Nothing.
Well,
Absolutely.
hold on. There's two ways you could do this. You can do like this, where you wear like the Akatsuki coat and you walk away. You look very cool. Or you wear a nurse's outfit and you hit a button but doesn't go off. And then afterwards you tell a bunch of people that wasn't planned. Heath Ledger improv that entire sequence. And then you get older and you're like, there's no fucking way they would have improv'd a sequence where you had to explode a hospital. There's not a chance in the world that wasn't 100% planned.
I think the story is supposed to be that it was supposed to be synced with his button press, but they mistimed it, so that's why he started playing with the remote until it went off.
Yeah,
I think that's
that they're supposed to be saying that it's improv, and then you think about it for a second, you're like, there's no chance in the world that
it would have gone off without a hitch. It would have had to if they had only one take.
Yeah, basically. they're not going to count it on the idea that like, oh well, what if he just pretends to keep pressing it for a while? Then like maybe we could get it go. Like no, there's no way.
I don't know. Anyway, Shio, after Guido does this, looks down at his hand at a bizarre thing that he's holding. It looks like a screaming face with too many fucking eyes on it.
Yeah, this is a fucking card from Pegasus's deck that slid out.
He says, it's almost time, mother. Now this is how you have someone have a weird totem that's different from everyone else's lighters.
Because this is where you're sitting there, you're like, I don't even know what that is originally, my guy. Like, what were you carrying around?
He's like, it's almost time, mother. Puts it in his pocket. Now to use my ability.
God damn it, I can't escape this fucking lighter. He's like, oh, that's actually just my salt and pepper grinder. Shh. It's just the salt and pepper coming out of the mouth. You're like, huh. But you call it, you know what?
Torazo is like, damn it, the Roppongi branch has been destroyed. We've got to go to the enemy's hideout. Hang on, Hibaru, I'm gonna floor it. And they get in the car to drive off. Whoa! All right, that's it.
Yeah, I don't have too much more to say. I also kind of want to get to other series, but this was not a bad chapter. It's fine, but
there were good parts of it.
I will say there's if more stuff was like this, I probably would be more optimistic for the series.
Okay. How do I talk about the new series here, Quinn? Because this is
we start
a long chapter.
We start by saying the series is called Hima-Ten. This is a new series. Yes. It looks to be a romantic comedy. And I mean, honestly, there's a pretty quick way to sum this up, is that there's a boy who has a job cleaning apartments and a new girl comes to school. And it just so happens to turn out that this boy is hired to be her, like, cleaner. And the awkwardness that then comes from that. But yes, there is more to the narrative.
I will try and speed through the main points that we established, because this chapter is very much to get us introduced to the protagonist, Iemori, who is, he's working while he's going through high school. He's got some money saved up, and he's just a part-time, house cleaner. He goes to people's houses. He establishes they're mostly like work friends and acquaintances of his mom.
Yeah, his mom
Uh,
gets him all of his jobs.
and then we are introduced to a new girl in his class, Himari Yoshino, whom everyone immediately recognizes as, wait a minute, she's that girl who's the president of her own company, because she's making all these news headlines and stuff. So everyone's like, "Oh my god, it's Himari! What the hell?" And then everyone starts to freak out. Wouldn't you know it, Yoshino is sitting next to Iemori. Can you believe this? He's got to look after her and show her around the school and stuff, and he doesn't want to have to deal with this. Oh no. When he gets a chance to actually like be by himself, he kind of like looks her up on his phone and is like, oh my god, no, she's like got her own makeup line, she's got 800,000 followers on Instagram, and she is described as her job is to make things cute. And then when he tries to go to class, like everyone's surrounding his desk because they're all swarming around Yoshino, and so he's like, my desk, and everyone's like, oh, hey, Iemori, don't you creep on her. He's like, I'm just trying to go to class.
He's like, all I like to do is clean.
Himari says like, hey, well, you should like use my first name. And he's like, no, not gonna do that. It's just like, all right, fine. They do all this. They start spending some time together because he has to. He does start to recognize like she is actually like, really cute. And he starts to get curious, like, I wonder what like her life is like, basically, because he's got that awkward situation of like, there is a person that is a celebrity and has all these things about them, and they're sitting literally physically right next to me, being a student in my class, and that does put you in a weird headspace of like, what are they freaking like?
Yeah.
Definitely not the third prong of the love triangle. It comes up.
No, Nick. So, like, obviously, this series is a little bit like Nisekoi. Like, we have our protagonist, and then we have like the hot-headed rich girl opposite, who's going to kind of have like a combative relationship with him, and then you have the friend Onodera. And Nick, wasn't Onodera like a threat till the very end of Nisekoi?
I don't think so. I think she was supposed to be.
Well, what about Onodera from Wish? Okay, like she has even more opportunities when you think about it.
Yeah, so Sairenji Haruna over here, Kanai, she's the person that, like, has known him for a really long time and stuff. She establishes, like, that, like, oh, Iemori's the guy who's, like, always being asked to do a bunch of stuff, so he's the class rep. Or, like, he's probably going to be the class rep, I think, at some point. Whatever. It's his job now.
Yeah, he is the class rep.
Started.
Yeah.
He's just getting started with it, though, because new school year. There's a really weird comment because she's like, oh, yeah, I follow Yoshino on Instagram. And he's like, you're on Instagram? He's like, I just lurk. Okay, thank you. That detail.
Cool little detail to add about yourself.
Yoshino is kind of causing a ruckus in the cafeteria because everyone's swarming around her, and that can be, disruptive in a school cafeteria. So Iemori comes over and is like, what the hell are you doing? And so he, like, leads her away and kind of scolds her over it. And he literally, like, takes her by the sleeve to lead her off, and then eventually she's like, oh, me. And he realizes, like, oh, yeah, sorry, and she mocks him for it because, like, you're shy and stuff.
Sure.
Then after a little bit of that, they're alone in the hallway and then the stairwell, and she says, like, I'm not, because he makes a comment like, how do you deal with, like, having everyone surrounding you like that? And she says, oh, I'm used to being the center of attention and getting all these compliments and people saying I'm cute and stuff, and that makes me feel proud when people say, like, oh, I buy your makeup and everything. None of that has to do with how famous I am. I just like getting congratulations, and kudos on a job well done. And so Iemori, for the first time, is like, she's pretty cool. That's a really cool attitude to have. Yeah. That she's actually this hardworking person who takes pride in her work.
And there's like a brief reflection that they show that he's the same way. Like he does his cleanings and then he loves to see the comments afterwards that are like, you did a great job.
Yeah, it's not just, oh, I'm making money. It's like, oh, they left me a nice review and stuff.
Yeah.
Good job, B. So they she asks like, hey, why didn't you say no to having to like babysit me around the school? And he says, no reason. She's like, oh, it's a boring reason. You can't just say stuff like that. And so he's like, ugh. And he says, I'm really used to just, doing this kind of thing of, like if no one wants to do a job, then I do it if someone asks, like housework and that kind of thing. I like when people can count on me too. And I feel like one day it's all going to pay off. And Yoshino says like, you know what? I feel like it kind of has paid off already because you're the first person here that I've become closer with. And it's like, hey, that's nice. They made a genuine human connection in the short time that they've known each other. And it's not steeped in, like weird high school stuff or any of the romance that's almost certainly going to unfold in this series.
Sure.
There's a whole thing about lunch, and there is a cute scene where Yoshino is like, oh, you've got a really good lunch. And there's immediately like, rock, paper, scissors. And he's like, what? And he's like, I win. This steak's all mine. All right, rock, paper, scissors, just goes for it again. It's like, no, stop eating my food.
I like that he's like, it's not just that you're eating my food. You're eating the main dish of my food. Like
the Hamburg steak.
You're going to leave me with just the rice and vegetables? Like, what the fuck?
No, I won't leave you with the rice and vegetables. Actually, give them to me.
Yeah, you're like, well, at least now I had nothing.
As the day starts to wind down, Iemori is like, at a certain point, like, we started to actually, like, kind of hit it off and get to know each other. And
Nick, I have a quick question. I don't mean to interrupt you, but on page, I guess, 41 of the lunch, you can see.
Mm-hmm.
So to the far left, is that entire container full of rice? Because that seems deep. That seems like a lot of rice to have to eat.
It probably is.
That's insane. That's so much rice.
Is it?
Yeah, that's got to be like...
Oh, that is actually a pretty deep container when
you
get a full shot of it.
I was like, if you compare it to like, there's like a soup over there and all that, it seems like that would be like 12 cups of rice or something. Like, that seems like a lot.
It's not 12 cups of rice.
Nick,
no way.
Nick, I don't want to alarm you. That looks like 30 to 40 cups of rice. And that's too much for one boy to be eating every day.
Quinn, that is 5 tons of rice in that bowl right there.
Nick, I'm looking at that. That is 17 mega neurons worth of rice. That's a lot, I think, for anyone to have, especially with no soy sauce. This is crazy.
What is that? What do they call it? Was it a patty? What was that called? That you would like be given the thing that like samurai would be given. It's like, we'll give you this much rice fields.
Oh yeah,
it's all in that one bowl. Oh.
Okay, fair enough. You know what? If he's doing it for his family, then that's okay.
That's right. He's a working boy. He's got to eat all that rice.
But hey, if you're a connoisseur of Japanese school lunchbox packing things, write into the show at nick@weeklymangarecap.com and just let us know, do you think that entire thing's full of rice? And if so, how much soy sauce would you need to eat it?
I mean, if it's really good rice, you wouldn't eat any. But anyway, so...
I didn't know we're fancy Nick over here who has the good rice where you don't need to put stuff on it.
It depends on how you cook it. Seriously. Anyway, so he considers like at a certain point, like we actually got like comfortable spending time around each other. And after this, I'm probably not going to talk to her very much. It's like, all right, I guess you're not good at keeping friends anymore.
I mean, it's not insane that he's just like,
this popular girl.
He's like, I don't think we really run in the same circles. I've shown her around. I don't think we're going to talk too much after this.
Yeah. It is a very the loner at school who is tasked with doing the stuff no one wants to do way of looking at things.
Yeah.
But he gets a little notice on his phone, like, "Hey, this is the person that you're gonna be my new client that you're." So he's like, "Oh, I'm hearing from them," and he's like, "I'm gonna, kind of like follow Yoshino's example. I'm gonna do work that I can be proud of." Goes to the place he's got to clean. It is like a penthouse in like a tower apartment. Goes up and he's like, wow, this place is incredible because it's this huge multi-store open air space.
Yep.
But also he looks around and is like, oh my god, this is a pigsty. I've got to, nobody is cleaning anything. But he thinks about
the sink is especially triggering.
It's
I don't know. I don't know
all
if it's
the plastic cup lids.
Yeah, I mean, there's that. There's like a slushy drink in there that you're like, you're not recycling this. Like, throw this away. Why is this in here? But like, I get such anxiety anytime I see a sink that's full of dishes that I'm like, ugh. I have to leave it at like just a couple dishes at most, because otherwise I'm like, I don't even know how I tackle this once I actually have to do it.
Because it's like it's just, you see the whole side of it and it's like, where do I even begin to empty this out?
I see that anytime I see somebody who's like, I'm going to clean up this hoarder's house. And I'm like, how the fuck do you even pick where to start? I would just sit there and cry. And then I'd be like, I would just like clean up the stuff directly around me at the front door. I'm sure that's not the best way to do it, but I would be like, I don't know how else to start this.
So anyway, he realized like, oh my god, there's no cleaning going on. But he thinks to himself, you know, like, oh, Yoshino is always like, I don't need anyone to look after me. And he's like, yeah, I can do this. And he's like, unlike Yoshino, whoever lives here needs me. So he's like, yeah, the person who hired me said that they're running late for work and I should just head in. But I wonder if I'll like actually meet them soon. And, you know, this place, it kind of smells like, and coming through the door, of course, is Yoshino. And she's like wearing a mask as she comes in, and which I think is because she's expecting someone to be cleaning when she gets there.
She might just also be cautious, you know, COVID's still a thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but she was in a public school not wearing it. I don't know. But anyway, she is wearing a mask in any case. And so she recognizes him, he recognizes her. And they're like, what are you doing here? And then she realizes, like, oh my god, you're the house cleaner that got hired. And she immediately is like, because, oh no, someone I know sees the way I live, basically.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, I paid the rent myself and I wanted to live on my own. So I transferred schools. And Iamori looks around and is like, oh my god, this place. And she thinks about, you know, like the way that he's known her before. He's like, really? You're my client? And she's like, yes! So, oh boy, here we go. It is safe to say this was not the worst manga that came out of this rotation of new series.
I mean, was there at least a slight relief when you looked at the color page? You're like, nobody seems to be an exorcist. Not yet.
Also, it's a romantic comedy thing with thus far, and I'm going to curse this immediately.
Oh, I know what you're about to say, and this is an insane thing to do.
None of the things we got used to in We Never Learn and Nisekoi and all that. You know the stuff. I'm not going to say what it is because I'll call it into existence.
I was going to say, you cannot say something like this series thankfully doesn't have any fan service because, like...
No, Quinn!
We do not know that for a fact. This series could turn on a dime.
I'm saying so far. We got through the whole first chapter. You may not remember this, but we first started We Never Learn. We got through the whole thing. I was like, oh, this is really nice. End of the first chapter. Oh, they're both in the shower naked.
Look, there was a level of restraint shown. Maybe that is what the series will carry forward with. I will say this. This is not a particularly engaging premise. This is basically like Nisekoi meets quintessential quintuplets, I think it was. Like, It's very similar sort of like opening setup. But I kind of miss this style of rom-com and Jump. Like, we have been blessed, thankfully blessed, with Blue Box as sort of our leading romantic series, and then there's also Witch Watch to a lesser extent. But I'm like, I kind of miss the trashy high school romance series. So I'm not asking for this to be trashy. I would like this to still be elevated as well. But I think I'm just excited for something in this wheelhouse again.
Yeah. I read this and I thought this isn't super interesting yet, but it's done solidly. You get a really good idea of the two main characters. There's, some nice sides to them, and the art's nice, and the story feels like a lot happens in the first chapter. As you get to just know them and get to know their dynamic and everything. I would say that just based on first impressions, that I'm not going to necessarily say like, oh, we should like read beyond the first three chapters, but I would say it feels like when we get to chapter 3, there's a chance we might want to. We'll see.
Yeah.
Speaking of the third chapter, Ultimate Exorcist Kiyoshi. We get reintroduced to him, our main character Kiyoshi, who reminds us that, hey, I took out 2 demon lords and I'm really strong and everything, and I'm going here to my assignment as an exorcist. It's a Chinese restaurant. And we go inside the Chinese restaurant. The main chef is a fairly young-looking guy who is, handing out food to people. And someone's like, "Where's a curry today?" And someone's like, "Hire someone else if you're going to be busy." And he says, No. My restaurant's intended for a small, highly skilled team only. This Chinese restaurant is serious business. Presents the guy some food. Then the phone rings. He gets a call from the Exorcist Association.
Not since the intense Chinese restaurant in the 3rd chapter of Kill Blue have we seen a 3rd chapter Chinese restaurant as serious as this.
So there's been a demon sighted somewhere nearby, and so he is assigned to go and take it out. He says to like his part-time helper, like, "Hey, I gotta step up for a delivery." And the guy's like, "God, come on, what are you doing? I'm gonna kill you." He's like, "I'll pay you an extra 100 yen per hour. Go ahead and take care of things." It's a nice joke. It's quick and simple. He runs off and like goes to his moped so that he can drive to the scene. And suddenly, Kiyoshi appears behind him and says, "I already exorcised the demon." He says it, in his way where he's way more ominous looking than he probably intends to be.
Yeah.
So the restaurant owner conjures a massive shadowy fist from the ground that grabs him and he says, "Who are you?" But Kiyoshi breaks out of it, and so Sakaki, the exorcist that he is squaring off with, his weird, shadowy, snaky spirit appears and says, "Oh, this guy is pretty strong." And he's got some dice. Ooh. Don't really see what he does with them. He starts to do something, and then Kiyoshi reminds us, like, I'm Kiyoshi Hirai. Do you remember me? And Sakaki's like, "Oh, that Kiyoshi? Like the kid?" So it's been, years since Kiyoshi has seen him. So apparently he's been in the game for a time. We are fully introduced to Tenma Sakaki, who is the manager of this Exorcist outpost / Chinese restaurant. It's both. Okay. So they talk about a bunch of things, allude to some stuff like how's Granny? And so apparently this Granny is like the Genkai of this series. We get a brief shot of her from the back and how her training is really intense. And Kiyoshi says, Sakaki first says, "Why'd you pick my out of the way posting?" And he replies, "Oh, I could ask you the same thing because you came out here and it meant that you gave up the highest rank for Exorcist. You gave up on being a cross paladin to do this." And Sakaki says, like, "Hey, this isn't about me." And Kiyoshi's like, "Hey, well, I don't really care where I end up. I just want to protect people from demons. That's all that matters." And I spent a long time thinking about it, and I decided that if I become an exorcist, I want to work with the person that I owe my life to, and that's you. And we get a flashback of a young Sakaki, Granny as well, and a young Kiyoshi being held in his arms while there's destruction all around them. Kiyoshi and Sakaki are both kind of bloodied up. So hints of backstory.
Mm-hmm.
Sakaki well, Kiyoshi rather says like, also I'm really shy around people, so I don't want to go somewhere where I don't know anyone. So oh, poor boy, he can't make friends and stuff. Sakaki alludes to a fierce battle coming up, and so he's like, all right, look, there's something coming up. Are you ready? And Kiyoshi's like, yeah, of course I am. Turns out the battle is rush hour at the restaurant, and so Kiyoshi is given a t-shirt and joins the staff. Oh boy. And he's like, yeah, this is kind of my top priority right now. We have all these, I love Chinese cuisine, and I opened this place a few years back, and I'm barely an exorcist now. This is like my main focus and everything. It's like, all right, sure, you do you.
Go for it. Yeah.
And he says, if for an exorcist, dealing with the unexpected is part of the job. If you can't even make Tenshin Han, what kind of exorcist are you? So he's very serious about this. You have to make it a Chinese food dish, or else he won't accept you as an exorcist. It feels like this should be funnier, honestly.
It's not like laugh out loud. Like, I can see where it's funny and how someone finds this funny, but this is not something that directly appeals to me.
Kiyoshi gets serious and is like, all right, I've got to overcome my limits here, and I've got to do as he asks and make this Tenshin Han. And so he very intensely chops up some leeks and cracks an egg and stir fries his concoction, presents it to the customer, and says, thanks for waiting. Here's your Tenshin Han. It's an omelet rice. Just fully, like, no relation at all to the dish he was supposed to make. It is a perfect omelet rice. Yeah. It's like, all right, that's funny. It just made something completely different and called it that. But then it's twisted on its head because the customer tries it. He's like, this is delicious. You should be advertising this. This is great. And it's like, all right, that's nice. You fucked up, but actually the fuck up is wonderful because he's precious and all that. So they're like, all right, fine. We're going to make this today's special Kiyoshi's Omurice. Hooray. So they get through the day. It's a big success. And then Sakaki mentions, oh, by the way, there's another exorcist that I mentioned, and I'm going to have the two of you team up. And Kiyoshi's like, all right, yeah, sure. Okay, I'm ready for that. But, oh no, if the exorcist who comes in, it's a young girl, which is apparently a problem for Kiyoshi. But, I mean, it's been established she's shy and can't meet people anyway, so sure.
Sure, you could just add in residual, like, oh, also nervous around girls, like, I get it. That's fine. This isn't as strong as the previous two chapters. But that said, because we are in chapter 3 of this series, I am finding myself okay with this series. And if we wanted to continue talking about it, I would be okay with that. But I'm not going to die on the hill if you're like, I don't care.
It's a really weird thing because I'm like, I felt last week like I was going to be more into the idea of like, yeah, let's give this a shot. And this one did kind of make me feel like, oh, I don't know. But I'm in this stage of, I don't really know, leaning slightly positive. So it's not like an enthusiastic yes. But I think that based on some of the promise that we have seen between all three chapters up to this point, that maybe this could be enjoyable. It could be fun. Sure. It might be kind of boring. It feels like we've kind of been all over the place between nothing and surprisingly good during the three chapters that we've had.
I think there's a part of me that just wants to give it a shot because it might end up being another Mashal. Like, it could just be a series where like, it's incredible and it's, it executes itself really well and it needs to, all that sort of stuff. But as is, it's something that I'm like, if you were like, nah, I'm fine or whatever, I wouldn't care that much. Mm-hmm. So are we going to keep it in then?
I think we will.
Okay.
Just, and, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But we need to wrap up soon. So we will say that there is a Marriagetoxin chapter.
2-page chapter.
Yeah, it's basically just about Kinosaki getting food at the Fire Lord mansion, and it's all like very hot food that they have no issue eating.
Yeah, they're totally fine with it, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, is she part of the Fire Clan?" Which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
News Exorcist, Chapter 57. The outcome. The outcome is that they won. Who could have seen that coming?
Yeah.
For whatever reason, like Gakuro, we flash back to when he and Suo planned the final attack, where apparently in the midst of, everything that happened, they had time to stand still and have like a detailed discussion of their strategy. I had a very different impression of the pace at which those events unfolded, but I guess this happened. Anyway, they did it. They beat Wanyudo. And Wanyudo, as he's, like chopped apart and is, falling backwards through the air after Gakuro's super Xenoblade Dark. He's like, how could this trivial attack put an end to me? And there's a flashback where they're like, if we just show the villain having a conversation, we can pretend they had a character of some depth. But basically he was like, oh yeah, let me go to the school. And everyone was like, no, you won't do it because you can't regenerate. So settle down and do the job you are given. Because as things stand, you ain't as capable as you think you are. Says another character we haven't really gotten to know very much yet. And he says to himself, now I know my life as a warrior ended long ago, the day I fought Haruhi Otsuki. Because he couldn't regenerate, basically, I guess. Anyway, the space surrounding them is disappearing. So they're like, oh my god, yeah, we won. And Juanita says, that's right, so I might as well go out with a bang. And Suo's like, oh no, he's going to blow himself up. Yajima, we gotta run. Gakuro is fully passed out while standing up after the big attack. So she's like, all right, I guess I gotta do it myself. And she summons a big Thorin thing to like carry them in a massive wave away from explosions and rubble and stuff. And then at the moment that is most convenient, Gakuro suddenly wakes up and remembers the instruction from Koga to take care of Suo. And so I don't know how this works.
So there are columns that are falling. And Gakuro wakes up in enough time to realize these columns are falling. So he has enough time to push Suo to get her away from it. But he also has enough time to, I guess, reverse. So his like back is now facing the ground. So he then gets crushed face up underneath the rubble.
Yes, because it would be too difficult to determine how you get two people face to face if one of them is pinned face down, their legs stuck. So we're gonna do it the easier way instead. I also don't know, like Suo's supposed to be the fast one, so it feels weird that like her taking 2 more steps would have taken more time than Gakuro shoving her. Like that doesn't feel like it matches. Anyway, Gakuro, on top of being heavily wounded in the battle, is now pinned underneath heavy rubble and stuff. So it's like, why'd you do that? And Gakuro's like, wait, senpai, the bomb mark is still on your face. And they're like, oh no, it's not gone. So she tries to kick her way through the rubble, but her hollow weapon is broken after all the battle, so she can't even actually get through that. So they're trapped. Oh no. And she's really upset because this is actually kind of nice because she's like, if we don't do something, you're also going to explode. Like her first thoughts are to him, which is like, all right, that's a nice, very quick little touch.
Yeah, absolutely.
So she's like, what do I do? What do I do? And Gakuro goes, it's fine. And Suo's like, no, it's not. And he makes a face that I'm glad Suo calls out on looking really weird because it looks really weird.
It's a very strange expression. It makes sense when you realize he has like a bunch of gaping wounds and he has like a ton of blood loss and he's being crushed underneath pillars. You're like, oh, this is the face you make when you're just dying, I guess.
Yeah. So Gakuro says like, this is the face of somebody who's fine. So let's think it through calmly. I can tell now that the mark is fading bit by bit. There must be a reason. Let's put our heads together and find a way to erase the mark. Very calm and logical for a person who has lost as much blood as he has and has his lower body being crushed. Anyway, so Suo, you know, she's a hysterical woman. She can't keep her mind straight in tense situations, I guess. So Suo's like, what do you mean, let's both think about it? And a shadow goes, both? Don't forget about little old me, miss. And Suo is shocked to see this little shadowy guy.
Is this the voice we established for the Shikigami?
Yeah, it is now. Yeah. And he's like, what do you mean? You gave me to this guy. You didn't forget, did you? You want to erase the bomb mark, right? We can do that easy. I'm here because we need someone to explain how to do this. And God knows, there ain't been no other Shikigami characters that could explain this to you. So, the bomb that he tagged you with is getting weaker. But the enemy used his arm in order to set this explosion, so it's going to take longer than he did to disappear. So you go kaboom if you hit the time limit before the effect's gone. So we need someone else's energy to be poured into you and make the mark disappear faster.
It's such a long explanation to just be
so long. Listen. The effect of the bomb.
Yeah. He's like, well, when you consider the energy transfer rates that are out there today, of course, you know, keeping in mind that no matter can truly be created or destroyed.
Listen, have you ever heard about nuclear fusion?
You can't do this to me, Dollar Store Kurama. You don't get to just talk about nuclear. You have to
Dollar Store Kurama, Yen Store Kurama.
You have to earn this. You have to earn nuclear fission.
We don't know this thing's name, I don't think. No, we do. She did say it. She did say it at some point.
I am almost positive we know the name. Couldn't even remotely give you a guess in the direction. I couldn't even be like, oh, it's like Kyopi or like, I have no idea. That information was wiped from my brain.
So the Shikigami says, because Suo's like, how do we transfer energy? And he's like, with a kiss. And she's like, And he says, oh yeah, when you transfer me to him, you just bump foreheads. So if we transfer power to, that won't cut it. So it's kiss or die.
Come on, you're bronze. You're so good at kissing, I assume.
Why a kiss? Why?
Who gives a shit?
Why?
No.
You need, listen, new Exorcist, you explain a new detail of how Exorcist powers work every 5 chapters. You have to explain this now. That's just how it works.
You probably should. This is absolutely 100% a contrivance to get these two characters to kiss. And, like, that was just known to be the plan from the very beginning. And it was like, how do we get them there? They have to kiss them.
So,
why? She'll die. Everyone will die. You gotta kiss them.
Gakuro starts to object to this, and so I was like, I'll do it. Just give me a second. And the Shikigami's like, you got a little over 2 minutes left. So Gakuro is like, oh man, when I thought that she was going to explode and kill us both, that was kind of bad. But this is awful. I can't let her die. And I swore to Shitatsu I wouldn't die. But a kiss from Senpai is worth more than my life. If Senpai thinks a kiss is more important than her life too, there won't be anything I can do. What is wrong with all of you?
I hate these characters so much.
Just, like, I'm not saying you have to be like, oh, let's do it. But Suo's having a pretty normal human reaction here of, oh, the boy that I like and I'm romantically interested in but in denial about is going to die if I don't kiss him. I've got 2 minutes to gather myself. Just give me a chance to do that, and I'll do the thing that needs to be done to save us both. And Gakuro's like, oh, no! Like, what is this boy? He comes up with, because the whole freakout that he has is not the craziest part of all this. The craziest part is, I know what it'll do. I'll suggest that I remove my soul gear, and then she can rip my school uniform off and put that over my mouth, and that might make it feel a little more okay.
Aren't you actively being crushed to death by pillars right now?
That's not important. If I take my soul gear off and get crushed faster, it'll be fine. What needs to be done is this plan where she takes more time to do that, does something that could suffocate and kill me, and potentially ruins the skin contact, which might be the reason this works. I don't know. Suo says, "Hey, raise your chin a bit," and gives him an upside down kiss. And the bomb mark goes away, and then Suo somehow hugs him. I don't know how she manages to do this. She has to kind of like lift him up and then embrace him. There's better ways to hug someone who's pinned this way.
Yes.
And she kind of like unloads all of her emotions because she's like, I thought you were gonna die like Haru, and oh my god, I've just been scared all this time ever since Haru died, and you were going to sacrifice yourself. She just unloads all these emotions on him all at once, and she says, I never want to be left behind again, ever. And it's like, okay, that's good. Like, you know, she had a near-death experience that was very similar to a traumatic event for her, and she's finally passed it all, and she just pours it all out to him. Gakuro, Mr. Mature, Calm, and Collected over here, says, I know! Please don't cry, senpai! We're going to just keep growing, and that means there's nothing to be afraid of from now on. Unless you're forced to kiss me again, and that is terrifying to me!
You never know when the plot might call for it, though. Like, now that it's on the table, that's like, oh, we gotta kiss each other. What if that's the dirty secret of Exorcist? There's like, okay.
Exorcist?
Yeah, oh, they're like, guys, look, don't be weird about this. But the only way to transfer energy between one another is just a chaste little kiss. Everything else about our powers does not seem to work that way, but this is the only, like, just don't be weird about this. It's perfectly platonic and normal, okay?
I hate this boy so much. All right.
Yep.
That being said, this was the most fun I had talking about a new Exorcist in like 5 weeks. So
I was gonna say that there was some classic Nick energy in there when I tried to brush past. Like, who cares whether you're like, no, why do they need to kiss each other?
You have to tell me. You have to justify yourself right now.
Oh my gosh, are we reading Bleach again? I haven't heard Nick this impassioned in so long.
New Exorcist really is the new Bleach, guys.
It really is.
I owe so many apologies to Kubo for all of the very impassioned rants, which on reflection were just because I loved Bleach so much when I was younger and was disappointed with it getting worse as I got older. We've got to talk about Akane-banashi and finish up.
Yes,
now.
let's wrap this up with Akane-banashi story 117 really shaping up.
Maikaru did it! He got promoted despite the fact that Isho was like, no, you're not good enough, because Zensho was like, fucking, yes. And he did it. So Shiguma is like the first person to approach and congratulate him because he was, of course, just waiting off stage. Shiguma gets a very cool pose like when he comes in, which is very funny to me because it's so unnecessary that he has this visual novel pose that he does when he shows up.
Yeah, this is where in the Phoenix Wright game you start mashing A because you're like, I already know who this character is. I don't care about their gimmick. Let's just get to the next scene.
He gives him some really heavy shoulder pats and is like, yeah, be nervous. But you did really, really well. Good job. And Ikara is kind of like, embarrassed about this because, this guy who was kind of always hard on him and so to serious up is expressing pride in him.
Nick, can I be honest? I shouldn't have said that about Ace Attorney. I don't skip characters even when the NPCs are void. I appreciate. I was just trying to make a visual novel reference, and I realized I haven't played any besides Phoenix Wright. So I just want to apologize from like my core as a human being.
I never. It's okay. I forgive you. Maikaru and Shiguma, and also I don't know her name yet, but the woman who's like been training Guriko and stuff. They all go back to the green room where the other apprentices are, Akane and Kyoji are crying. Kyoji is like on his knees, like he's just discovered Jesus again. And Koguma is like in a ball, muttering to
it
himself,
seems
like,
like he's like rocking back and forth.
and it's like, is he happy? I can't tell. Kyoji and Akane glomp Maikero, tackle him to the ground in a big hug, and then Koguma comes over and takes the knees out and scolds him for like, how dare you use that story? It is reserved for only the biggest Okanban Rakugoka in the past. Of course, he knows the entire history of it, and so he uses that to fuel this, like, how dare you take such a big risk? He's like hammering on his back like a little brother, and he's like, if it had turned out like the other time, I would have hated you for life. So it's like he was really, really nervous that history was going to repeat itself. Aw. Maikeru, he's back to being like big brother mode with everyone. Gives them all in a big huddle, and he's like, I guess I had you guys worried, but all your support helped me through this. Thank you so much. Aw. Very sweet. Maikeru says, we gotta throw a party, and Shigema says, as long as you don't half-ass it, which is he's the cool grandpa, you know?
Yeah.
Guriko has got to only, like participate over the phone. But he also gets to, in his own way, take part in this. And he's like, my Karahani-san, he's the young master of the Shigema school. And it's like, yeah, that's nice. Things are changing. We're taking steps forward. It's sweet.
Mm-hmm.
People start to go home. Maikero approaches Zensho when he's going to his car to get the hell out of there. And he says, yeah, I didn't think you were going to vote for me. And Zensho says, did you flop on purpose to make the second half hit harder? And Makaro's like, no, I was trying to get people to laugh in the beginning. The second half was a big story, a big challenge for me, and it would have been a lot easier if people were already laughing along with me from the beginning. But now I think that the heavy mood kind of helped me get as far as I did. So Zensho's like, he's got a band-aid on his lip, by the way, because he bit himself so hard he bled. So he slams his door and he's like, fine, you're a Shinichi now, so we might find ourselves together in the future. You better watch out. The game isn't over. Ooh. Then we cut over to Iken, whom Kaisei approaches, and he's pouting. And he just says, Mastery Show doesn't usually praise people that much. Which is saying something.
Yeah, you're like, that was okay. All right, fair enough.
The defining words of his review were, it was fine. Kaisei denies being jealous when Iken accuses him, then denies being upset, and he's like, he just can't be honest with himself. Kind of reminds me of Hikaru and how she gets pouty about Akane and stuff. So he says, the standards for Shinichi promotion have risen significantly. When Taizen got promoted, it was difficult, but it wasn't as bad as this one. Something happened before the expulsion controversy, an incident that changed Mastery Show. And Kaisei says, well, whatever did happen, the job remains the same. Such a cool line. It's like,
same as it ever was.
All right. Rakugo never changes. Yeah, that's kind of the point, actually.
Yeah.
The Shigema school is all walking back from things. Akane notices the Shigema's not Shigema. Maikeru's a little bit gloomy, and he admits, like, yeah, it's because it wasn't like a unanimous success. And so Akane says, "Hey, Ani-san, give me 5." And so Maikeru, all right, slaps her 5, and she says, "There, now I've got it. Anything still weighing on your mind, I'll make sure to exercise it." And so he's like, all right, I'm counting on you. And he says, you got it. I'm going to be a Shinichi even in Isho Arakawa's eyes. So do a little bit of a baton pass there. It's like, I'll do it. Yeah. So like we've established, like, this is kind of the big thing is that, like, yes, Maikero succeeded. Isho is still the final hurdle. Good.
Yep.
Afterwards, Maikara goes to the salon to, get his hair cut by Akane's mother. And a whole week has passed, and she says, like, yeah, they were showing your thing on TV the whole time, and I can't believe you're a Shinuchi now, that blonde slacker that I knew. You've come such a long way. And Maikara denies it, but she says, he said something while he was watching the TV. And of course she's talking about Shinta. He said Maikara's ninja banashi are really shaping up. And Maikara's like, I don't know if he'd say that. And besides, whose fault does he think that is?
And we end on incense. Just
incense
tying
burning.
into the story.
Yeah.
Nick, it's all about the story and the layers.
It's this is a nice, very satisfying story arc that we got, focusing on Maikaro. A lot of focus on his connection to Akane's family. A very satisfying confrontation that happened, and Isho reasserting himself after being away for a little while, which I really, really liked.
Yeah, this was good stuff. It was a good way to kind of wrap up the story. I like the way that we're kind of setting up, like, oh, Koguma, or not Koguma, fuck, what's his name? Isho student.
Kaisei.
Kaisei has his rival now of Maikara. Like, we're like firmly establishing that. And like, I don't know, it's just like, it's a good setup for things.
Yeah. Well, that's it for this week in manga. So, what was your favorite chapter?
Yeah. Ooh, favorite chapter this week. Thinking back through them all, I think I'm going to give it to... Am I giving it to Blue Box? No. Give me a sec. Let me think on that.
Okay. I think I'm going to give mine to Akane-banashi. There were, a lot of solid picks from this week. I do think the Blue Box kind of fades in the second half because it just goes into... And then, we're getting set up.
Then they go on vacation, yeah.
Yeah, basically. Which isn't bad, but it's just like, all right, fine. And my MVP is gonna be Hina, because she has two very funny reactions in a very short span of time when talking to Haruto. Yeah. Like, it's just so funny. Like, I can't help it.
Do I pick my character as Suo Shikigami just so Ninja types in what its name is and we learn what its name is?
It is an option.
Yeah, I think I'm going to give my chapter of the week to My Hero Academia. Not My Hero Academia. Oh my god. To Akane-banashi. My character of the week is going to go to Spinner, though, from My Hero is what I meant. I apologize.
Absolutely makes sense. Yeah, he was a gamer.
It's like the only, like, I know they kind of were always trying to be like, no, there's as much of a plot for this character as there is for like Toby and or Dobby and Toga, but we knew Spinner was kind of not that same level, so it was nice to see him get this moment at the end.
Spinner was probably, in the end, like the fifth most important sequence-wise member of the League of Villains, because even when you consider like the fact that Twice wasn't involved in the final battle, he
definitely had more of an impact on the story
much
overall.
More of an impact, and his character was much more deeply explored than Spinner's was. Spinner was just a stand-in for, hey, heteromorphs get mistreated, and that was kind of it.
I honestly think there's even a world where you could argue Mr. Compress being more important than Spinner for a chunk of it.
He was definitely more memorable in like design and his sense of style, even if he didn't get to do a whole lot independently.
Yeah. The audience, by the way, picked Akane-banashi as chapter of the week and then Spinner as character of the week. So clean sweep for Akane-banashi.
Nice. All right. Guys, that will do it for Weekly Manga Recap. Thank you for joining us on this special Friday episode. We plan to be back on our normal schedule Wednesday evenings here on twitch.tv/RoloC. We'll start the show again probably sometime between 7:30 and 8 Eastern Time. We'll send out a blast on the Discord channel for when we go live, so be sure to follow along with that. It'll be linked wherever this gets posted. Our past episodes are on weeklymangarecap.podbean.com. They get posted over on iTunes and Spotify through the feed. Video versions are at youtube.com/weeklymangarecap. YouTube versions have an opening sequence by Malajack Stillitz and Winsdale Cheddar. Thank you guys for that. Also occasionally have thumbnail art by Steve Man, whose artwork you can check out all across the internet by searching for Steve Man Art. We also have a Patreon page, patreon.com/weeklymangarecap, where regular bonus episodes get uploaded if you want to help support the show financially. And give us some ideas on some of those, by the way. In the Discord channel, there is a sub-chat specifically. There is a channel specifically for discussing bonus episodes and bonus episode ideas. We want to thank, finally, NinjaX3i for helping to keep track of all of our stats and lore and everything on the Google Doc. You can find that linked as well through the Discord. And if you want to check out recommendations for series that we have done in the past and some that we are considering for the future, there is a tab for that. You can add your vote to something that is already listed on a suggestion, or you can add your own suggestion. We are currently working on Talentless Nana.
Yes. All right. I think that's gonna wrap it up. Do we have anything else we want to say, or we're off until next week?
It's kind of hard to think of things to say after you've been talking for 2.5 hours.
Yeah. There's actually a German word for that.
Is there?
Yeah. It's called Ennui.
What is it? I knew you were going to do it, but I was like, I'm not going to deny her this.
Yes.